everyone, and welcome to the 58th episode of Slime Time Sidequest, an official Dragon's Den podcast. This is one of your hosts, Platty M3.
And this is your other one of your hosts, Yangus the Legendary Bandit.
All right, Yangus, imagine this. Aliens have just invaded the Earth. A large gorilla flying a TIE fighter with his earthworm co-pilot is the only one who can save the human race from certain extermination.
No. What the hell are you talking about?
I mean, we can... Knuckles and Zangief might have a backup plan.
Well, don't forget Freddy Fish and Ness.
Twinkie, stop reading the script. Platty's gone off the deep end again. We're not doing this intro.
Aww, we're not?
No. All right, dude, we've put this episode off a week because you were, quote, too busy. And instead, I open up the Google document tonight to see you've written a 10-page fanfic intro. Was this what you were too busy doing last week? Like, what the hell, man?
I kind of feel if my lawyer was here, she'd recommend I answer that no.
And with that, we're done. Well, folks, if the name of this podcast wasn't a big hit, or if you missed what Jason Aldean was saying about earlier, well, you might have surmised that tonight we're talking about video games that released in 1994.
Yes, it was a heck of a good time for video games. The Sega Saturn and first PlayStation would come out later in the year, but amazing Sega Genesis and SNES titles were being released left and right, and PC gaming was in full swing.
It sure was.
Mm-hmm. We've got a couple dozen titles to talk about tonight. With so many iconic games coming out in 1994, we're skipping our everyone pick a few games to talk about format, and instead we're going to hit on a ton of exceptional titles, probably waxing poetic about some more than others. You've heard a good number of these talked about before on SideQuest, but some of these can never get enough love. So without further ado, let's get to the list.
Yeah, there's really no particular order here tonight. Yangus wrote a list of a bunch of games, and I was like, sure, let's do it all. So I just went with the order that Yangus wrote. So we can start with that.
Yeah, basically how I got my list created here was I was going through like all the games released in like 1994, and just any of them that caught my eye, mostly ones that either I played or knew enough about. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, let's put that one. Let's go with that one too. Yeah. So full disclosure, there's probably going to be some other like big hits from this era that we miss. Maybe we'll mention them at the end if we think about them, or somebody's like, oh, what about this? So this is just a list of stuff that just was a like first draft list. So there we go. All right. So what are we starting with, Platty?
All right, we'll start with Earthbound. Now, that's one we've always meant to have an entire like mother podcast on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think Drippy's been wanting to do that with you.
Someday, when the time is right, when the stars align. Gygus threatens the Earth in 10 years. 10 years later, Buzz will come back and tell us it's time to do the episode.
I will turn this over to you guys mainly. I did play like 14 hours of this, I think back in 2020, actually before the pandemic started. And then then we were all home and had tons more time. So I played a lot of other games instead. But it was okay. It was okay. It was a game that I think that, if I played it back in 1994, this would have been my jam. But it was, in retrospect, all these years later, it was fine. I just kind of was like, oh, new and shiny. Oh, it's Tokyo Mirage Sessions. That's what drew me away from this.
Yeah.
Memories.
I'll just say my piece real fast for this one, and then pass over to Twinkie and Mattcraft. But we've talked about this more in depth, or at least I did, back in the aka I rambled about it back in the Good Bad Meh episode that Platty and I did like 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, that seems like a spring, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but just quick little review from me about it. This is one of my favorite games / RPGs. I played this in like 2009, 2010 for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the humor and the tone of the game overall, like nice little adventure. I really like how it just has that simple RPG gameplay to it that's easy to grasp, kind of like Dragon Quest has, and it has some really great music. And definitely, I like how the game's not afraid to throw some like kind of crazy curveballs with the atmosphere that it has, especially towards the end of the game. Quick little side note, one of my favorite jokes that I was thinking about from this game is when you're going into, what is it? You've saved the Runaway Five from their debt from the theater that's in Tucson. And as you board their bus and are starting to drive away from town, the bus driver ends up hitting the curb of the sidewalk and yells out the window, "Hey, sidewalk, get out of my way." It's so stupid. I don't know why that line has always stuck out to me, but when I was looking at this list and writing down some few things earlier today, that line jumped in my head again. So that's what I like about Earthbound 2 is they're just a bunch of like one-off lines that always just make me laugh and I think about every now and then. But yeah, if you want to hear a more in-depth take from me about this game, you can tune into our Good, Bad, Meh episode, whatever episode number that is. But anyway, what about you two, Mattcraft and Twinkie? What do you guys got to say about Earthbound?
Oh, well, I mean, I actually first played the game, I think it was in 97. My cousin had a copy of it, but I was so young at the time I didn't know what was going on. Earthbound was actually the first game I actually emulated, as much as I hate to say that. And I'm not sure if you know about, Earthbound's anti-piracy measures at the time, but this was back when emulation was kind of newish. So I went into the game and I got my ass kicked because the difficulty got turned up on because of the anti-piracy measures. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm afraid to admit to it, but I ended up replaying it after learning about that not too long after, but I didn't play through it, and I didn't actually play through the game for the first time until it came out on NSO, and I really enjoyed it. Super good game. I'm honestly surprised the humor aged as well as it did in that game too, I must say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's funny too looking at that game because this was back when Nintendo was really strict on like no religious references of any kind in their games. But if you play Earthbound, there are a few times where the word heaven or pray slips in. Yeah. One of Paula's commands is pray for one thing. And one of my favorite boss lines before battle starts in the Foreside Mall is when it's like the Elite Mook or whatever its name is, and he says, "Oh, you darn kids, don't go to heaven." Then the fight starts. It's so funny because Nintendo was so strict on anything religion related back then. So it's so funny that those two snuck through the cracks.
You ever give this game a go, Mattcraft?
Oh yeah, trust me, there's a lot more innuendo in that game than anyone far realizes. I loved Earthbound. I honestly played it back in the day, and I had the strategy guide that stank and everything that came with it. It wasn't until years later, when replaying it, that you finally understand all the adult subtlety that they put into the game, with everything from the equivalent of a hooker bar to the entirety of Moonside, in my opinion. That has to be the freakiest part of the game to me. Going through what literally is an entirely different dimension, and plus the freaking enemies in there, fire hydrants that were alive, and melting paintings from Dali Salvador. I think Earthbound has one of the most creative casts and colorful sets of enemies that I have ever seen in my life. Please ignore the dogs. Thank you.
All right, so number one, Earthbound. Glowing praise from three of you, and it is something I feel like I need to try again and give it a full go. And Twinkie, you said it's on the Nintendo Switch online?
Yeah,
that's
probably
that,
how I'll have to do that. The first Mother game, Earthbound 0/Earthbound Beginnings, is on.
That's right.
The Switch Online thing.
Though you might want to use a map for a couple of the dungeons in that game, though.
Yeah, don't worry. I always play easy mode with maps and strategy guides if I can.
Yeah, first
especially
game
with the older stuff.
Oh yeah, first game. And the funny part is that they made our dungeons easier in the first game with the Western release.
Mm.
The Japanese, oh man, you look at some of the maps from the Japanese version of Mother 1. Oh boy, they were not kind to those poor kids that played that game back in the day.
Yeah, and apparently Mount Atoy was actually changed in the American version, or what it was supposed to be the American version. So I was like, it gets worse. I was caught off guard by that.
Yeah, basically.
That place was, oh, no way. That was
so.
Never again.
Yeah. I just when I played that game, I just used Teddy to help grind up levels, and then your giant robot friend Eve to help with that too for a while. But for quick context, for of our any of our Dragon Quest listeners, Mount Etoy is kind of one of the infamous parts of that game because it was not balanced very well at all. They were running out of time. It kind of fell into the same trap that the Land of Roan ran into back with Dragon Warrior 2, where that part of the game just got like crazy. How it gets crazy difficult. That's basically the Nintendo equivalent to that in Mother 1 / Earthbound 0 Beginnings, whatever you want to call it. It's crazy. It's genuinely one of those parts where everybody who plays it, it's like, yeah, just run from enemies. Don't even worry about fighting. Just run. But yeah, I think that's our cue to move on to the next one, though, if we're talking about a different game here from that series.
Yeah, talking about a game that's got a lot of games in the series. And Twinkie, you just mentioned that Earthbound was the first game you ever emulated.
Yeah.
Now, Harvest Moon was the first one I ever emulated, but I gave that thing like an hour tops. And then I found this one, Final Fantasy VI. I totally missed this in 94. So I want to say it was around 98 that some kid that I was tutoring while I was in college was like, hey, you ever, Mr. Matt, you ever hear about ROMs? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he went on to tell me about it. I was like, oh, so went back to my dorm room that night and I'm like, oh, what's this? And Harvest Moon, played around with it a little bit. And then I was like, what? There's Final Fantasies that I missed? And yeah, played Final Fantasy VI. I barely remember anything about this. This is one I actually want to do the pixel remaster of. I know I joke about Final Fantasies a lot, but the first 6 I've enjoyed throughout my life, playing them on a Game Boy Advance, and I never did the PlayStation versions, but I hear, thank God, that I didn't do that.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, those ones are pretty bad.
Didn't miss anything there.
No.
But Final Fantasy 6 and 3 were the two that really stuck out to me when I played them in the late 90s, early 2000s. Finally got around to circling around to those. But I know you guys have more specific praise for this. I almost remember nothing about it, except there was a huge cast of characters. Like, had a bunch of people on that airship towards the end.
Yep. Got 14 party members total.
Whew. I was used to my Dragon Quest 5, maybe a couple more in the wagon.
Yeah. I'll just go again. I'll just say my little bit real quick. So we kind of Earthbound. We have, like, I've talked about this one with Platty. What was it? Pendy. And oh God, I don't remember.
It was episode 1. It was Sidequest 1.
It's way back episode 1. I don't remember who's all on that one. I think it was you, me, Pendy, and Mattcraft, if I remember right. But way back on that very first episode, we talked about Final Fantasies 1 through 6. So if you want to head back to ye old days, you want to hear that, you can hear a little more in depth. But again, kind of a quick version. What I would say, this is one of the games that I get a lot of enjoyment from the series. It's one of those weird ones too, where it kind of flip flops around where I would put it on my favorites list. But I really do enjoy a lot of stuff about Final Fantasy VI. I replayed it last year via the Pixel Remaster version, and when it's one of those things too, where like when I replay some games, I start noticing little details I never caught before. And I notice there's a lot of little little dialogue changes if you do certain events and go back to places, like things you wouldn't normally think you wouldn't have to really do to go advance the plot. But it's kind of cool to see that, how if you advance parts of the story and you go back and talk to certain NPCs and towns and stuff, they might have different dialogue where it's like, oh, my son was able to come back home, or we've been hearing all these rumors down south from the Empire's capital. Things like that. It was really cool. This game also has one of my favorite endings in a video game period. Again, I've kind of talked about that before in the past, where I think it was actually in one of our favorite games episodes that we did for 2023, if I remember right, where I went a little more in depth on that. But I really love the music and how it's handled in that, how the cut scenes show all of the large cast of characters all working together. And again, I don't want to try and repeat myself too much for stuff that I would have said in the past before, but just overall, I just really enjoy the story, and I like how you can build your characters with the Esper system and everything. And it's got a very good game, and it's definitely stood the test of time. And I will end it on that note for that game. So Twinkie, Mattcraft, what do you guys think of this one?
Well, I mean, shoot, I've talked about Final Fantasy VI and almost every single retro thing that we have. I love it. Like, you picked the game that I could rehash for 3 or 4 hours. So we're not going to do that. There's only one thing that I could say about this game, and if you have to bleep it out, you will. It's a fucking masterpiece. And that is all. Play it now.
We bleep nothing out.
No, we do it live. Fuck it.
It's still a masterpiece.
Yeah, I don't know what to add to it, honestly. I mean, it's Final Fantasy VI. Super good game. Love it. Though I'm kind of due for a replay because it's been years since I've touched the game. So, but
Yeah,
super
it's
good
probably
game.
been 25 years, and the Pixel remasters is still haven't got around to those, but one day I will. One day I will.
Yeah, I think the last
Too
time I
many new
played
games.
it was when it came out on Game Boy Advance, and I only put like 3 hours into that version and just kind of stopped. So it's been a long time.
Oh, you know what? I probably did replay it on Game Boy Advance, come to think of it. So maybe it's been 20 years, not 25, but still, it's been long enough that I remember almost no plot details. So, all right, well, Final Fantasy VI, moving on to another SNES title, Donkey Kong Country. This is one I got no experience with, so Yangus, I'll turn it over to you.
Woo! Hold on one sec, BRB. Okay, sorry about that. I got so excited I had to step away for a second there. I had to catch my
Collect yourself.
I about passed out from excitement. Oh my god, no. So, oh god, where do we want to start with this one? This is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games and one of my favorite platformers. I think 2 is probably a better constructed game, but I got a lot of love for the original. So this is one of those games that I got in. It was like 2000 or 2001, whenever the Game Boy Color port of Donkey Kong Country came out. And I'm pretty impressed that Rare was able to get this game to work on a Game Boy Color cartridge, because it's a pretty jam-packed game if you play this on like Super Nintendo. I mean, that's why they had to make the Donkey Kong Land games, because they're like, well, we could try and make this work on an old Game Boy. So the fact they were able to get the whole Super Nintendo game to work on a Game Boy cartridge is kind of crazy. Or Game Boy Color cartridge is even crazier. But anyway, classic platformer. You play as Donkey Kong and his little buddy Diddy Kong, running through the jungle, running through all of Donkey Kong Island, try and win back his banana horde, because for some reason those crazy Kremlins, those alligator crocodile-looking sons of guns, they just love stealing DK's bananas for whatever reason. I personally think they have major potassium issues, so that's why they steal the whole banana horde, but anyway, King K. Rool and his Kremlin crew stole the banana horde from Donkey Kong and them, so it's your goal to go across the island and win that banana horde back from all his baddies, and eventually fight K. Rool himself. Let's see what I type in here. So, yeah, like I said, first experience with the Game Boy Color version. Eventually I played it proper via the Wii Virtual Console release. Nowadays... this is a game that I've replayed, several times over the years. So nowadays, if I replay it, I usually try and do like a speed run through it of sorts. Just more so for fun than rather than trying to do like a serious speed run thing. Fastest I've done is about an hour if I'm lucky, and I don't have trouble with some of the later levels because, boy, Rare kicked the difficulty up like at the midpoint of the game, and then the last part of the game in Chimp Caverns is just like whatever, just throw some platform challenges in there, whatever, who cares. But I really like this game. I love how, let's see what I type here. So I like the look of this game. Looking at this game by today's standards, maybe graphically it might not seem that impressive to a lot of the younger generations, but I just imagine what these graphics were like back in 1994. It had to be like mind blowing seeing these 3D-esque graphics in a Super Nintendo game where most games were just like little cartoony 2D sprites and stuff. Here you had Rare who were taking these 3D renders and basically creating flat images of every single one for a video game. I've seen people talk about that too, from like who were back from that era, growing up, or it's one of the first games they saw, and they said it was just crazy seeing like Super Mario World and then going to this. Anyway, I personally am a fan of this and the other Donkey Kong Country games' visual styles. You have the great music by David Wise. This in the second game. Third game kind of gets a bad rap. It's not my personal favorite of the bunch, but with the original Donkey Kong Country, can't go wrong. Classic platformer, a lot of fun.
I'm actually kind of surprised there's a Game Boy Color version. It's my first time hearing about it.
Oh, really? You didn't know about that?
No, I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I got that for Christmas one year. I had no idea. Like, I just was like, oh, there's a Donkey Kong game. Oh my gosh.
I'm actually impressed they managed to make it work on the color. I'm looking at gameplay footage of it and I'm like, wow. Yeah,
like people underestimate just how much of this is probably a lame way to say it, but how much of a power boost the Game Boy Color was versus the the classic Game Boy. There's tons of stuff they were able to do with the GBC hardware.
Yeah.
Wow. You ever play that one, Mattcraft?
Oh boy, Donkey Kong Country. I sucked at it. Still suck at it. Every single time I turn it on, I'll get past a few levels, and then, well, of course, I kill Donkey Kong, no matter what I do. So, very pretty game for the time. I was very surprised at the graphics for it. It seemed like what Nintendo Rare could at the time. If I'm mistaken. But I don't think he was in the first one, but the only thing that ever keeps jumping out to me from the Donkey Kong Country games is the swordfish character he can ride. I don't know why. That just is the one thing that sticks to me.
Oh yeah, On Guard's in the first one.
I think it was on a poster or something similar. I can't remember exactly.
Yep. On Guard's in the first one. He, Rambi, Winky the Frog, and Espresso the Ostrich are the 4 animal buddies in that one.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, that was Donkey Kong Country, third one on our list here. We're going to go to, let's see, Twinkie. You put this one on our list. This is not one I had typed, so I don't know if, and Yangus has never even heard of this one, so I know I haven't played it. So Twinkie, we're going to turn Dragon View over to you.
So, a little context with the game. I can't believe I'm giving praise for a Kemco game, but that's what it is. But it's a sequel to Draken. I'm not sure if you heard of that one, but Draken was like an early Super Nintendo RPG, and it actually got a lot of press coverage at the time. And Dragon View ended up becoming its own, like, it got developed by Kemco by completely different people because the original developers were French. And it's kind of hard to describe the game, but it's a 2D action RPG that also has like a 3D world exploration element to it. And I've ended up picking this game up on a whim, going like at a yard sale at one point. I was super young. I thought the cover looked cool because, I mean, dragons are cool, you know.
Yeah.
Picked it up, played it, loved it. After actually doing research for this episode, when I was looking at the list, I got surprised that it came out in 94 because I didn't realize it came out in 94. And I ended up replaying it just this past weekend. And yeah, it's just as good as I remember.
Oh, wow.
The game is, it has some rough edges with the 3D world exploration stuff because, I mean, it is a Super Nintendo game. And surprisingly, the game doesn't actually use, a lot of people don't notice, but the 3D world elements don't actually use the Super FX chip with the Super Nintendo. So I'm not sure what kind of techno wizardry they were able to pull off to get it to work. But the same thing with Draken. Draken kind of had like this weird 3D environment exploration thing. And none of them had like the Super FX chip at the time. So it's pretty impressive in how that worked at the time. But it's one of those games that I kind of recommend people at least give it a shot. So
yeah,
I know Mattcraft played it too. So
this is
I actually replayed it recently on an actual console, believe it or not. Draken and Draken Book 2 are both on the Evercade. Granted, it's on a cartridge you can't really find anymore, but you can still replay it on modern technology without feeling like a chode.
You can also buy it on Steam. That's how I played it.
Oh man, the Steam version. I think it's the PC version from back in the day. It has a monster in the desert area. I show off a clip of it every once in a while on some channels. It's one of the monsters from the desert just says, "I love you," over and over until you kill it. And it's actually done off of like the computer's voice chip. So it's really, really creepy. Another thing creepy about the games is that, and you see this in Draken 2 as well, the stars themselves want to kill you and send down their monsters to end you horribly. Don't ever find one when you're wandering around in the first game.
Oh yeah, I remember those moving stars. They gave me nightmares as a kid.
I know it.
This game looks really good. Sprite work is pretty detailed. But then again, I mean, these are the last of the Super Nintendo games. This was right before PlayStation came out, so
yep.
94 should have some good-looking games.
Mm-hmm.
I just said 94 should have some good-looking games, and I know Final Fantasy VI was really nice-looking compared to others. But all right, yeah, wow, I might take a look at that sometime. That's some fun gameplay there. I could do that. I could do that action RPG. That's not too bad.
Yeah, don't let the 2D action RPG, because it does, like, you do move up and down, so it's kind of like 3D, 2D kind of thing.
Yeah,
but the hitboxes and stuff are pretty generous, so they don't look or feel as bad as it actually looks. So the game actually felt pretty responsive when I replayed it last week.
I'm watching a long playthrough of it, and the person's just grinding. I'm like, okay, this is the same room like 10 times in a row. You must be building up levels or something. They even got like HP bars for the enemies. And
yep.
Nice. All right, well, next one probably is as famous as Final Fantasy VI or Earthbound here. Next on our list, we got Super Metroid. Again, game I've never played, shamefully. Who wants to take this one away?
Everybody talk up at once. I keep taking the lead on these Nintendo ones, so someone else has to start off this.
Twinkie, you play Super Metroid?
Yeah, I grew up with it. It was one of my first Super Nintendo games. I don't know what much else to say about it. It's a masterpiece. The game is beautiful.
We got to tell the people about it. So what do you do in this game, Twinkie?
You play as
Pow Pow?
you play as a chick in armor, and you shoot stuff in a maze-like planet
And why are you doing that?
to recover the last Metroid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was in captivity and the galaxy was at peace. But then Ridley decided, hey, I'm going to steal this. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yep.
And off he goes, the big chicken in the sky. Or, sorry, the big space chicken in the sky. All right, well.
Space Chicken.
All right, well, good. Since no one else is saying anything, I guess I'll just do my little part here. So this is a game where I played it a bunch as a kid. Was not very good at it because I only had like a few, like maybe a half hour, maybe an hour at a time messing with this game. So I really didn't have a chance to learn the controls that well. But I remember enjoying just kind of starting it. I was like blown away that a Super Nintendo game had dialogue or spoken dialogue in it because, this game came out in 94. I first played this when I was, I want to say like 8 or 9 years old. So that would have been like 2000. Oh God, would that been like early 2000s? We'll just say that. And I really hadn't had a whole lot of experience with Super Nintendo games, so it was always cool to get a chance to like go over to my cousin's place, give it a shot, mess around with some of the games that he had, like A Link to the Past, ones that I never got to play, and one of them was Super Metroid. So I was like, oh, cool, Super Metroid. Let's try this one out because I knew of Samus from Smash Brothers. Like most kids, I thought Samus was a robot, and then you eventually find out, oh, it's a woman in that suit. Okay, all right, whatever.
What? Holy crap!
I know
I'm
that
gonna
was
tag this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tag that spoiler.
Play. What were you gonna say?
I was just saying I got to tag that spoiler.
Oh, okay.
Nobody knows that.
Bleep it out. Bleep it out.
I'll bleep that out. I'll bleep that out.
Gotta bleep that out. I can't let anybody know that one. The swearing we're okay with. Spoilers, no. But oh god, I just realized this game's like 30 years old now this year. Oh my god.
That's why we're talking 94. These are all 30 years old.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that till just now. It's like, oh my god. Well, anyway, so yes, like Twinkie said, Super Metroid, you're playing as Samus Aran. The last Metroid that she actually recovered in, Metroid 2 Return of Samus from the Game Boy. From the Game Boy game, it gets taken to a space station where scientists are researching it. Well, you get the alarm that, hey, something's going on at that space station you just took the baby Metroid to. Turns out, as I said, the giant space chicken Ridley stole the baby Metroid and flies up back to planet Zebus, or Zebus, however you're supposed to say it. And the space pirates are up to their old tricks again. So what I really liked about this one, both as a kid and as an adult, I appreciate it more. I just love how the game sets up its story and its atmosphere just through visual storytelling rather than a lot of dialogue. The opening has the little dialogue from Samus kind of giving you a recap of what's happened in the first and the second games of the series. But I like how a lot of the stuff that happens in-game is told through like things activating or little events occurring as you're exploring the planet. Like this is one that somebody pointed out to me and it's like, oh, that's really cool. I never would have thought about that. So when you get into the planet, it's all very quiet. There's no alien life like really that active except for some little bugs that are, just kind of minding their own business. But when you then get down deep enough to what's supposed to be, I believe, the very first part of the first Metroid game where you pick up the morph ball where you can like turn Samus. Somehow she's able to turn herself into a tiny little pinball to go darting around everywhere. When you pick that up from the statue, there is a light that suddenly turns on. It looks like a robotic eye looking down right at Samus, and that's supposed to be the signal that you even though you need to pick that up to help you advance through the planet, you just helped reactivate the planet itself. And now the pirates are like, oh crap, Samus is here. We have to go and try and stop her. Because when you then start going back through areas you previously went to where there were no enemies whatsoever, you start coming across enemy pirates or space pirates, excuse me. So it's really cool how this game has so much visual storytelling going on for it. And not only to actually like show you the story side of things, but also from gameplay point of views too, to kind of show you like how you can use some of your powers that you get as you're playing through it. I was finally able to play through and beat this game about 4 years ago or so. Really enjoyed it. It was so great getting to kick Mother Brain's ass after what she does to that poor Metroid. But Definitely one of those games that I, after playing it myself, finally from start to finish, seeing why so many people love it so much. That's all I have to say about that one.
And that's all I got to say about that.
That's an echo in here.
All right, Yangus Gump. We will move on.
Life is like a box of Metroid. You never know when it's going to try and bite your face.
We'll move on to our next one, and I think we might be kind of Yangus heavy on this one.
Okay.
We are down to Live Alive.
Okay, well, I feel bad. I feel like I'm just talking the most of this whole episode. So,
Oh, don't worry. I'll wax poetic next.
all right. Well, I'm
Give you a
just going to
break.
make this real quick because I've already gone in depth on another episode. So, I'll be honest. I call it Live Alive. I know it's supposed to be said Live Alive, but fuck you. I'm going to
Oh,
say
I
Live
said it
Alive.
wrong. Damn it.
No, it's fine. It's one of those things where I think it's like tomato. I don't know. Anyway, I call it Live Alive. So anyway, again, talked about this in a past episode a lot more in depth. Again, just quick review for me. Really enjoyed the various stories, how all the chapters had their own style to it. The unlockable chapters that you then get if you beat those first or initial ones are both really cool. Love how there's the satisfying conclusion from it, and it's overall like one of those games that after I beat it, I'm like, I would say it's one of my favorite games, favorite RPGs. But that's all I'm going to say about that, and I'm leave it to you guys because I don't want to keep being the one that's only talking about these games.
Twinkie, you play Live Alive? Live Alive?
I have. I played the remake when it came out. It's been a couple years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's been 2 years exactly. We just covered it recently on my other podcast, RPG Backtrack.
Yeah, I tried to play the fan translation of the original when it first came out, but I never got around to playing it. And then I ended up playing the remake and ended up loving it. Honestly, I think it's probably one of the better JRPGs released in the remake anyways in the last few years. I absolutely loved my time with it. Typically, I'm not a guy who replays RPGs as soon as I beat them, but there was just like certain aspects of the story that I just had to replay and did so. It's a super good game. I think a lot of people sleep on it. It's super good.
Yeah, that was one that I remember going to play that year, and I think I made it like about halfway through the caveman one, the one with no dialogue. I think that might have been not the best to start on the with. I was kind of a little confused, like what's going on? Why am I hearing nothing? Why is nothing playing? Or why is nobody talking?
It's actually a good bit of storytelling because, well, once you play some of the other ones, maybe because there's no form of speech, so they only communicate through like grunts and stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely
that
loved
game.
about that part.
Mm-hmm. It's a little more clear in the remake, to be fair. So I could get where if you played the original first and played that chapter, you might be like, "That's really weird. What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, I mean, it's not supposed to be a long chapter, but I think I stumbled around for like an hour and a half, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. No,
I think at the same time it was like a game that I had like scheduled to play that year, and that was the year that I think because wasn't there like rumors of a Korean where it got like Korea had it copyrighted or whatever.
Yeah, that was when all the copyrights were popping up, and we were all just like, what's that about? Why is Square Enix doing that? And then eventually they revealed like, hey, it's getting an HD 2D remake. But yeah, no, I could see though, Platty, where you're coming from. That might have been really confusing. Like, why the hell is everybody talking?
Yeah, and that like I played that, and then it was like, well, this is also one that people keep talking about. It's going to get remade for the Switch, so I'll just that was an interesting night. I think I'll set that aside and do something else.
There you go.
And
if you play that game again, you should do what I do: use a random number generator between 1 and 7 for those first 7 chapters,
and just let it go.
Like have 1 be the prehistoric and 7 be the distant future, and work the other ones in through there, and then
that's exactly what I did.
That's what I did the first time playing, because I'm like, you know what, I can't decide which one to start with. So eeny, meeny, miny, random number generator. What do we get? Number 3, we're going with Japan. All right,
there we go.
We're going with the Edo period. All right, let's go.
Nice. So yeah, I will one day get to that on Switch. That is something I know. Even Drippy keeps hitting me up every time he sees it go on sale for me. But all right, next we'll move on to a game that I put on the list. I was like, yoo-hoo! Finally, I got something that really stuck out for me this time, because I kind of realized over the weekend, I was like, man, 94. I got a Super Nintendo. I guess right around here. I mean, I was in high school, 92 to 96, so this would have been right in the middle of that. But I got Madden, and I think I played almost nothing on my Super Nintendo other than Madden, like ever. I never played the Final Fantasies. I had Madden. I had a couple other sports games, and that was about it. I almost never played my Super Nintendo much. Because I was too busy with PC games at this point. This is when I was like Heroes of Might and Magic. The next year I'd get into the XCOM series in 95. I feel like I was playing a lot of SimCity, stuff like that, Civilization on my PC quite a bit. But also I had gotten X-Wing for the PC and loved that. And in 94, the better of the two games came out, TIE Fighter. And holy cow, did I probably play this game for like 6 months. I remember buying the extra discs or CDs. I don't even know if there were CDs at the time for it. Actually, here we go. LucasArts offered a pre-release demo on floppy disk. So this was probably floppy disk thing here. And what is it? IGN's got this on a couple lists. In 2009, it was the number 2 PC game of all time. It's in their Hall of Fame. 2017, they had it listed 3rd of greatest of all time. GameSpot's put it one of their list greatest of all times. Basically, you're flying around in a TIE fighter, and it was always interesting to be the bad guys. I've always thought that we never really have a good RPG, I don't think, out there where you are the bad guy, literally killing the good guys. I want that. I want that every now and again. And back then, I was a huge Star Wars fan, so this was awesome. It's a flight simulator. You're in the cockpit, and there's actually a bunch of campaigns that you can play. You start off in the crappy old TIE fighter that doesn't even have shields. And so some of the first battles and missions you're going on, it's pretty tough at the time, because at least in X-Wing, you've got shields. You're flying X-Wings, Y-Wings, you had bombs and everything. And you start off TIE Fighter as just the lowly little TIE Fighter with the little hexagonal wings that don't do much. They're pretty much the cannon fodder of the Imperial Army, the Empire. But you get to fly the TIE Interceptors later on. They go faster, and the gameplay is different in them. The TIE Bombers, you're doing those on some cool runs. And I was looking up trying to remember, why was this so much better than X-Wing for me? Because, it's pretty much the same. You're just doing different missions and such. You're on the other side. But they had upgraded a bunch of different things. And I remember, in X-Wing trying to destroy Star Destroyers, I'm going to just keep playing this mission forever and see if I can go hit it 4 times, knock its shield down, fly away before I get shot, and come and do it again. And this game, you could actually target different parts of capital ships. If you were flying a mission, it might be take out the shield generator or take out the gun batteries on the Mon Calamari Star Cruisers or something like that. So there were a lot of specific missions that you could target just individual parts. Gosh, I almost want to say muscle memory. I'm thinking the comma button or something, because this was all played via mouse and keyboard. So they were just... The ships looked better. Everything was a little bit crisper from the update, from the X-Wing. There's some of these missions that would just go on for 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, playing them, just flying around in space, trying to circle around, get close enough to big ships and take out their missile defense or whatever. If you're doing the TIE Bomber, you had a lot of bombs, so you could actually participate in missions that could destroy some of the bigger ships. I don't know if X-Wing had that or not, but I just remember some huge explosions and oh my god, I just spent an hour on this mission and actually blew up the biggest ship in the thing. I think there was different targeting modes. There was that targeting, but I was trying to look at some of the differences and what was some different things that made it so much better than the original X-Wing game. But there's just quality of life improvements, and you're in a ship, and when you have shields, you can divert power from your weapons to your shields. You can charge up the batteries on the weapons. You can rotate your shields to fully in front of you, fully behind you, even them out. I think there were tractor beams in this one too. I don't know if they got you, or I think you could use them to do certain things depending on the ship configuration. It was just really fun to go through all the campaigns as the bad guys and just play as the bad guys. Any of you guys ever play X-Wing or TIE Fighter?
I'm afraid I have not. I have not played this one.
I played Jedi Starfighter, but that wasn't for... I think that came out in 2002.
So, probably built on the roots of these older games.
Yeah.
Yeah, The only flying Star Wars game that I've played is Rogue Squadron back on the Nintendo 64. I think there was also a PC version as well, but that's the only one that I've played with like the flight controls. But I wouldn't be surprised though if TIE Fighters and that was what influenced Rogue Squadron eventually when that came out a few years later. So
yeah, and I never really followed like the whole series much after that. But like they backported whatever, but they came out with took a lot of the quality of life stuff, put it back into X-Wings, and I think X-Wing something Alliance it came out after this, and then they had a tie. I remember buying the extra add-ons to this because there was, I want to say there was like 7 or 8 campaigns in the first, and you could add another 3 twice. There was add-ons to this. Ooh. Probably my first ever quote-unquote DLC for a game was TIE Fighter stuff. So yeah, it was what I remember, like PC gaming in the late 90s, like this, and Heroes of Might and Magic and XCOM were, and oh gosh, what was the with the Zerg? StarCraft, yeah, there you go.
So that seemed like the best shot in the dark for that one.
Yep, there you go. I was going to say, they only came out with StarCraft 2, in the past 10 years or something?
Yeah, and that game has a crazy esports thing for it, too, which is nuts.
It used to. League of Legends kind of killed it.
Okay. Doesn't Korea, though, don't they, like, love StarCraft 2? They like the big
They play
StarCraft
quite a
2?
bit of it, but I think a lot of them kind of fell back to the original StarCraft.
Okay. I don't follow any of that. So as far as you could have told me that, oh yeah, StarCraft 2 is still kicking and screaming over there, and I would have believed you.
Yeah, I used to be pretty big into StarCraft 2 when it first came out, and it just kind of died off after League of Legends picked up in popularity because Blizzard made some missteps with their balancing and stuff. So people just either went back to StarCraft or just went to League of Legends instead.
Yeah, the only thing that I really know about StarCraft is that's where we get I forget what that voice actor's name is, but that's where we get the quote where the guys are like, "We need to build additional pylons," because I've heard that used in so many YouTube poops, and people just throwing that in over the years.
Additional pylons needed.
Yes, just such a deep, cool voice is like, "We need to build additional pylons." It's like, all right, we will build them when we can. How about that?
All right, moving down the list, we got Yangus. We got Beyond Oasis.
Okay, I was hoping Mattcraft would be here to help talk about this one too, since I know he's a fan of the game, but I think he had to dip out for a little bit. But yeah, so Beyond Oasis. This was actually our first Genesis game on the list, I believe. Was Dragon View Super Nintendo?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure I was correct. I was being right on that. Anyway, but yeah, this is our first Sega Genesis game here on the list. So Beyond Oasis. This is a game that I kind of knew about thanks to the Sonic Genesis collection that was on the Xbox 360. I messed with it a little bit there, but I never really got that far into it other than just playing it for like maybe 5-10 minutes or so. But it was one of those games that did stand out to me. And now going back to it years later, I played it during 2020 when I was stuck at home, as many of us were, when COVID was really striking the U.S. pretty hard. And it was kind of crazy when playing it because not only does the game have a nice visual style and music to it, turns out that the reason why it does is because it was actually created by Yuzo Koshiro and his company Ancient Corp. So that was kind of neat to learn about that. And the game has a very nice sense of adventure too as you're going around this overworld. It's very Legend of Zelda-like, where you get some new abilities that eventually let you open up new paths to go to places. Gives you the sense then where like a bit of accomplishment was like, hey, now that I got this, I can go back to like this rock that I couldn't move, or I can use the power of these spirits for the different elemental powers to do different things. Like you get to use the fire one, for instance, to enter like a race, and if you're fast enough, you unlock a special sword. Let's see. I don't really remember a whole lot about the story of this game. It's pretty much that your young prince that you're playing as. I think they call him Prince Ali, if I remember right, kind of like from Arabian Nights.
It's Ali.
Yes, Ali Baba. Yeah, but yeah,
so,
you're
not
playing
that one.
Yep. But you are playing as a prince, and it's very like desert Arabian Night kind of themed with how characters are dressed and everything. I don't remember a whole lot about the story, like I said, but the combat and getting the powers was a lot of fun. And it was always cool to kind of figure out your new stuff that you could use, or like how some of the different swords can be used versus just your standard dagger. One complaint I do have about the gameplay, though, is that with just your standard dagger, there's a ton of moves that the prince can use to like dodge or like reflect attacks back and stuff. But if you equip one of the big like saber swords, he can't do a lot of those tactics. And it's kind of weird that they limited it that way, but it's kind of, this is kind of back when action RPGs were slash adventure games, whatever you want to call this, were kind of starting to get more and more footing. And this feels like a game where they had played like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and were like, well, what could we do, to build on this to try and make it better? It's almost kind of reminded me of like how there's like the back and forth where one company sees somebody doing something, they try their own take on it, but they do things that people really like. That original company sees what they did, takes it back, and like, well, we can do this. So I don't know. That's just my observation on that. But I really like this game. It's one that I enjoyed playing through when I was stuck at home. Really enjoyed. It was really cool to find out too that Yuzo Koshiro, who's one of my favorite composers, had such a big hand in this. And it's cool too because I think it's because of him that's why, like, years later with Etrian Odyssey 3, I've told this story before to Matt or to Platty and others, but in that game there's a class called the Wildling, and if you look at the Wildling's the adult male portrait, he actually wears the gold bracer on his arm that the prince wears in this game, Beyond Oasis. And if you use the alternate colored portrait, he has the silver gauntlet, which the bad guy has on their arm. So that was kind of cool, especially after, you appreciate that kind of reference more when you've gotten more of the context. But yeah, that's really all I got to say about Beyond Oasis. Have either one of you two played or heard about this one before?
I've played it, but not for very long. I think it was included in the Ultimate Genesis Collection on the 360.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to it. I played it, and it looked pretty neat, but I never really gave it a proper chance. So I really don't have much to say on it, unfortunately.
And nope, I have rarely heard and never played it.
All right, well, game good, play game. Especially if you're curious about the Genesis library like I've been. Anyway.
All right, Yangusarian.
I had to channel him since he's not here.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over this next one because if Mattcraft makes it back from his other duties, then we'll circle back around to Breath of Fire 2. This is one of his favorites. Oh, yeah. But we'll go to another 2. We got a couple 2s in here. Doom 2.
It's Doom 2. It's Doom, but 2-ear. Oh, great.
Even more Doom.
Yes.
Doomed.
This is the one where he's trying to get revenge on those demons for killing his pet rat. And you think I'm joking, but that's actually part of the plot.
Yep.
I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one myself. I played the first one, never really played the second one, but I have heard I've heard a lot of people say it's a really nice step up in gameplay and design and everything compared to the first game. So, that's good to hear. But after playing the first one, I'm looking forward to eventually trying this one out. Should be a good time like the first game was. Twinkie, you've played all these Doom games, haven't you?
I actually didn't really play Doom 2 that much until recently, so I don't have much history with it.
Well, hey, you got a fresh experience then if you just played it recently, so tell us about it.
Well, it's Doom, but it's Doom 2. They really didn't like... It's really hard to say like much about it, considering it's pretty much just Doom 2, but with one additional weapon and better level design, in my opinion. I only played halfway through it, roughly. So my experience is that it's pretty good. I actually prefer over Doom 1, but as I said, I haven't played all the way through it yet, so it's pretty good though.
Platty, we know that you are the doomiest one of us all, so you have experience with this game, right?
I might have played the original. I know the joke is, you can play Doom on everything. I don't know if I've ever played Doom on anything, though.
No. You have sent us your pictures of your Doom, like, speed runs. Like, you were a pro at this back in the day. I've seen the pictures. Don't you remember that? You sent those to us when you were drunk one night.
That's why I don't remember it. There we go.
Okay, like creating WADs at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You were in one of your blackout drunk phases, so you have no idea.
Yeah, no clue. Right. I can only play Doom when I'm blackout drunk.
That's when your gamer instincts kick in.
That's when my non-turn-based RPG
Yep.
playing happens. So I have no memory of it.
You're like the Wolfman.
It's the catch-22. It's almost like I've never played it.
You're like the Wolfman. When the full moon comes out, that's when you're like suddenly your body just starts changing and you become an expert pro gamer for first-person shooters.
All right. Well, we'll go to another from Doom 2 to another series of games that I have never played. We've got X-Men: Children of the Atom.
All right. Well, I'll take the lead on this one again, I guess. So this was actually the start of the Marvel vs. Capcom series of games.
Oh, okay.
Which, hey, that collection's coming out at some point this year.
I played a couple of those, actually.
Yeah, so this is actually where it all got started. I don't know the background. I didn't look that up, to be fair, but it just ended up being that Marvel approached Capcom. I'm guessing it was Marvel approached Capcom. We're like, hey, we'd like to make an X-Men game, because this would have been at the time where that X-Men 90s cartoon probably would have been either just starting or kind of getting into full force. And, X-Men 90s were real big with the X-Men. You couldn't look anywhere in there. You wouldn't see them. But this was a game that was a fighting game for these X-Men characters, where you had a few of the mutants from Professor X's school. You had a few of the bad guys like Magneto. You had a Sentinel unit and some other characters. A lot of really cool sprite work in this game, and they also included Akuma as a secret playable character in the arcades, and I think a much easier way to play as him in the home ports if there were any. Admittedly, I don't know too awful much about this one other than what I mentioned before, but I have heard a lot of people say that, much like some of the other games in the Marvel vs. Capcom series, it's a beautiful mess to play.
I think I played one or two of the PlayStation games. Was it 2 or 3? I remember talking to you a couple of years about it, and we, my sons and I played it a bunch. Yeah, picked it up for cheap on PlayStation 4.
Probably the third one, if I had to guess.
That sounds familiar. I think the second one was only on PlayStation 3.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Weirdly enough, it also had a phone port for iPhones.
What the heck?
Yeah, I tried playing that version when I had gotten a new iPhone. Oh man, no.
What? Fighting games on cell phones not working out great?
Yeah, right.
Come on, Yangus, get with the times.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not the mobile pusher. I'm just. It's not for me, man. But no. Twinkie, you got anything about this one?
I actually didn't really play it, so I know about its history a little bit, and I know I've heard the same thing, that the game's a beautiful mess. But I personally actually never played it. I started with MVC 2, I think it was. Right. So. Well,
I guess in that case then, so this is just wrapped up super fast. Quick, name your favorite X-Men. Go.
Wolverine.
First. Wolverine.
Okay, Wolverine. All right. Wolverine. We're on agreement. Okay.
That was
okay.
Easy.
All right. Well, that takes care of that one then. Good. We've gotten that covered.
All right.
Our asses are saved in case anybody listens. Who are they gonna pick? All right.
Next, from one fighter to the next, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
It's Street Fighter 2.
They can never let this damn game end.
It's Street Fighter 2, but Super Ear and Turbo Ear.
It was Super Turbo Ear.
All right.
Gosh, I played a lot of Street Fighter 2 with the kids down the street growing up. But I think, again, this was, we had moved by this time, and I just never got around to this one. I'm pretty sure I played, looking at it, and I know, there's more, you can play as, everybody in this one. So, and isn't there something about, having more moves or something like that? Or different moves?
Yeah.
Increased moves?
Admittedly, this is one that I don't know the most details about for everything that changed. But I do know this is the one that tournaments mostly use. Like if people play Street Fighter today in like an Evo tournament or something like that, that this is the version that they will use.
Okay.
I guess just real quick going to mine. Like I said, I kind of don't know all the differences with this iteration, but again, do know this is one of the most loved versions of the game. I will say though, if you're going to play this by yourself instead of with a group of people or something, definitely do not play any of the Western versions of the game, because they really screw up the difficulty selections, and apparently every difficulty is incredibly hard because the AI reads.
So it's either hard, or hard.
Yes, basically. So because I looked into it, because I'm like, this can't be right. Like this, what is this? An SNK game? This is ridiculous. Read your input so bad. Apparently, when they were porting the game over here to the U.S. and translating it, something got screwed up in the background. So if you play this one and you want to play like arcade mode, you're better off playing a Japanese version, like via like the Capcom arcade collection things that they have. Because for whatever reason, the Japan one works as intended. The U.S. one, they were like, "Fuck you, give us your quarters." Yeah, I've had a little bit of experience with Street Fighter 2. Admittedly, this is not like one of my go-to games for fighting games, but it it's a classic. I respect that, and it's got a lot of cool characters. Plus, it has some very funny dialogue with how the characters are voiced, especially Sagat, where he goes, "Tiger, tiger, tiger, tiger." It's like you have this hulking giant of a man who's got like a little squeaky voice. It's great. Twinkie, what do you think about this lovely game?
It's all right. I'm not a huge Street Fighter 2 guy, but yeah, it's pretty good. I was more of a Mortal Kombat kid at the time, so I didn't really play a whole lot of it.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on down the list then. We've got Sonic 3 plus Knuckles.
It's Sonic, but okay, no, I'll stop that joke. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one. I've actually never played these Sonic games in particular, but I do know that they're pretty well loved, and probably one of the most loved of the original trilogy, particularly with the and Knuckles content, because I guess that really refines a lot of the stuff about Sonic 3, because I think they had to rush that game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I do know Michael Jackson was like kind of famously a ghost composer for the game, and if you listen to some of the songs, you can kind of tell that it kind of has that sort of MJ influence to it, especially the snow area music. Not sure about the Knuckles content though, but I don't have much more to say about this one other than that. I'd like to play it at some point, but yep, that's it. What about you guys?
Yeah, you really should play it at some point.
Never gave much time to Sonic.
Yep. Well, I'm a Mario kid, so I'm legally obligated to hate. Legally obligated to hate Sonic back in the day.
Oh yeah, and that was back then. I didn't have any of the Genesis or no. I always got both my Super Nintendo and my Nintendo U's, and it was like I want to say it was from the same friend, like about 4 years apart. And it was because he had like bought the Sega. He's like, "Yeah, I'm done with Nintendo. I bought Sega."
Yeah, I was very fortunate to grow up with the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo at the time, so I put a good amount of time into Sonic and Knuckles, more in particular. I didn't care for Sonic 3, and I still don't, but I remember
more of a Sonic 2 guy.
I was definitely more of a Sonic 2 guy, absolutely.
Fair enough. Did you ever play Sonic 2 with playing as Knuckles?
Yes, I have. In fact, I played Sonic 2 with Knuckles more than I have than actually playing Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, believe it or not. That's how much I like Sonic 2.
It's a good game.
It is.
Alrighty, well, we've had a lot of huge series here from Doom and X-Men and Street Fighter and Sonic, and it just keeps coming. Everything was releasing games back in this year. We got Castlevania Bloodlines.
Mm-hmm. It's a bloody good time.
I hope so. I never got past Castlevania 3. My Castlevania journey ended on the NES.
Monkey, you got anything to say about this
what's
one?
up with all these games of like big IPs I haven't played? Bloodlines is one of the few I didn't play. Yeah.
We gotta lock you in a room so you can play these games. No outside distractions.
I have a copy of it. I just never played it. So.
Well, it's a pretty good game. I like this one. From this era of the Castlevania games, this is one that I really enjoy. This is one where you actually get two different playable characters. I forget their names, but one of them uses the classic kind of whip combat. Another one the other one has a spear, which you get to use to like aim in different directions, depending on what your like preference of style is. And what's cool is that both of them have their own paths and their own kind of fighting styles for taking on bosses and enemies and everything. I don't really have too much to add. It's a very good entry. Like I said, very good entry in the series. I like that, for this being from the era, it's from how they had this kind of dynamic gameplay where things would change depending on which protagonist you chose. And I think in some cases, actually what character you choose, there's different paths you can also take. Kind of like with Castlevania 3, where if you had certain characters, like you could take different paths.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, don't have too much else to say, but if you are interested to play this particular entry, you can play it in the Castlevania collection that's out on all of the modern consoles nowadays. Usually you can get it for sale for like $4.
I think I've actually picked that one up. Never played it, but yeah, some of these things are so inexpensive. I'm like, my God, one day I'm going to play this.
I'm just going to chime in too, but Castlevania Bloodlines has some of the coolest box art ever. I absolutely love that box art. It's beautiful. It's a masterpiece.
Great. In this game, like some people prefer like the Super Nintendo sound chip over the Genesis and vice versa. No, this game really it goes hard for doing that Castlevania music, and it's great. I love a lot of the soundtrack from this game. Like some of the first few tracks you hear in the game really set the tone. It's fantastic.
Nice. All right. Oh, hey, look, yet another big series that we got on here. And Yangus, you actually haven't played this one, so I don't know. We have it on our list, but I don't know if anybody's played this one. Contra Hardcore.
Yes, it's Contra, but hardcore.
But harder.
But harder, yes.
It's 20% alcohol.
This is kind of like with the Castlevania Bloodlines thing, where there was Super Castlevania 4 and Castlevania Rondo of Blood on the Super Nintendo. Bloodlines was for the Genesis, and this is another case where there was I forget which Contra game was on the Super Nintendo. Someone probably somewhere is yelling.
Super C, was it?
I was gonna say, was it Super? Yeah.
I don't know. I think Super C was on the. That was the. God damn it! Which one was it? It was like Contra 3, I think. Was on the Super Nintendo, because Super C was on the NES.
Oh, okay. I get these titles confused.
I do too. But anyway, this is kind of that same thing where this was a Contra game for the Genesis kids. And again, it was, I have not played this one myself. I've seen a lot of footage and it looks really cool. Because again, like they take the sound chip and the graphic capabilities of the Genesis and, they just go hardcore. Like, this is hardcore. But it's one that I've heard a lot of people say, too, that it's a really good entry in the series. Some people prefer this one over Contra 3 because this one apparently does not have the top-down maps like Contra 3 does, and people hate those with passion, with the Mode 7 map thing. But I'd like to play this one at some point. I'll get to it eventually. I don't know when, even though these games probably aren't that long. But again, I've heard a lot of really good things about it, and I will check it out at some point. You guys played this one or any other Contra games?
I played the original quite a bit.
Oh, and back on the NES?
Back in the NES days, yeah.
Did you ever beat that one?
Never.
Hey,
oh my gosh, I threw myself into the wall or whatever so many times. Just
was it one of those ones where it's like the wall shooting at, like it's the not top down, but it's
No, it was a side.
Oh, it was a side scroller level. Okay,
it was a side scroll. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know that game gets that. I'm kind of not a fan, to be honest, of the run and gun games from back then where you die in one hit. I'm not really a huge fan of that. If I'm gonna play a game like that, I'll play Metal Slug just because there's usually ways to avoid that kind of stuff a little easier. But that's just more of a preference thing. But yeah, no, that's cool though that you've played the original. Have you played any of them? Twinkie, played any of the damned Konami and their C name titles? You ever played a Contra game?
I played Contra 1 a lot on the NES, and I played a bit of it's Contra 3 that's on the Super Nintendo. Okay. I've never played the Sega Genesis version, so I can't really comment on it. So,
well, hey, now you got another one you got to play when we lock in the room. So,
yep.
All right. Right.
Alrighty, moving down our list. We've got Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors.
Oh, it's getting dark in here. It's so dark, in fact, that this was where the start of that Morgan sprite kept appearing in everything from Capcom. Ooh.
I was going to say, it was in, like, all the games, right? Like, in the exact same sprite?
It was.
I saw a meme of, like, how, other people had evolved, and no, that was the exact same one in everyone.
Yes. You ever hear anybody joke about that? No, it's not a joke. It's true. They just copy pasted that Morgan sprite from the first Darkstalkers game into pretty much anything Morgan ever appeared in after that. Thankfully, they eventually stopped when they had swapped over to 3D games. But
well, I was going to say that'd be the time to do so.
Oh man. Honestly, there was part of me that hoped that when they made the first 3D versus game, Tatsunoko versus Capcom, they were going to sneak in that 2D sprite of Morgan somehow just to be like, fuck you, here it is. I was so hoping, but it didn't happen. I have not played a whole lot of Darkstalkers. I've messed around with I think it's the third game of the series, if I remember correctly. This is definitely one of the cooler like animated games from Capcom with its sprite work, because for this being like a horror themed fighting game where like you have like, Frankenstein's monster, you have vampires, the swamp creature, and all this stuff, like classic scary movie monsters. It's cool that a lot of them have very like cartoony physics in the way that they act and everything, which it's kind of a nice contrast. Of course, these characters have appeared in a lot of other Capcom games. Shout out to my girl Felicia. That's right, it's a cat girl. I don't care. No, but I do like how Felicia plays. So I just like how she's just so energetic and fun with everything. But no, it's got a great cast of characters and a lot of well designed and well animated characters too. Like one of my favorites is, oh goodness, what's his name? It's the Pharaoh mummy guy that has appeared in a few games. He can like some of these giant sarcophaguses to come flying down from the screen. He can like extend his arms out. He's kind of like the Dhalsim of the Darkstalkers games, where he can like extend his limbs, shoot out things to like kind of keep you away. Kind of I guess he'd be a keep away character or something. I don't know. Twinkie's better with probably that kind of lingo than I am, so I don't know if my description is very accurate for that. Zoner. Yeah. Thank you. That's the one. But yeah, I like the style of this game. I haven't played too much of any of these games, but I do like them. What about you guys?
Never played.
Twinkie, what about you? Your fighting game.
The original I played a little bit of. Pretty good. I was more of a Bishamon main, he's the samurai guy, I believe.
Oh, he's cool, yeah.
Yeah, that's who I made when I played it. Super good game. And I know this is a long stretch. I know, like, there's no one that works with Capcom that's listening, but please, for the love of God, make a new Darkstalkers game.
Well, we seem to have good luck with whenever we bring up certain games that they suddenly are like, okay, yeah, no, there's a new game from this thing coming.
I hope so.
I don't know, man.
Don't get me wrong. I love the old.
We talked about the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake in one episode, and then like a week later, all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, here's some news." That's when the direct happened or something. We have that power, so I don't know.
Well, hopefully, because don't get me wrong, I love the older Darkstalkers games, but I'm just getting tired of them being re-released in like everything every 5 years. Just make a new game, damn it. I'm tired of it. Last game came out in what, 97? Oh. It's been a long time.
Yep. It's okay. That Morgan sprite keeps showing up and everything. It's all good. But mate, who knows what could happen though? We're seeing SNK do brand new entries of like stuff like Garou Mark of the Wolves, and they announced they're doing a new Art of Fighting game. So maybe this will kind of get Capcom to be like, maybe we should try making a brand new like actual game in these series.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yes.
We've got Demon's Crest.
Ooh, another Capcom.
I was going to say we're getting the games that I haven't even heard of anymore.
Yeah, we got another Capcom one, baby. So I'm going to guess that neither one of you have much to say about this one.
Nope.
It's one of those games I also played for like 5 minutes.
Boy, I feel like I did a real shitty job picking out games from this.
I have heard a lot. I do know some people have played it and they have said it's pretty good. So I'll just take their word for it.
Yeah. So just quick little synopsis for this one. This is part of the Ghosts and Goblins series, where you're actually playing instead of as Arthur, the knight trying to save the princess from the devil Satan man. You are instead playing as his arch enemy, the Firebrand, or the Red Armorer, depending on what name you want to go with. I believe this one it's more of a 2D side-scrolling kind of game, but you actually get powers up via like Mega Man X or like Zelda, so you get new power-ups and you can go like beat certain bosses easier. You can access new areas. This is one that I have not played a whole lot myself, but I think it's really cool that back in the day they made this game still based in that universe, but you actually got to play from the bad guy's perspective. So kind of tying back, actually play when you were talking about the TIE Fighter game, where you got to play from the bad guy's point of view.
Yeah,
but very good sprite work in this game too. It's got a really cool style to it if you watch some gameplay of it. Like the way Firebrand acts too, like his sprite work is pretty cool, and his little changes that he gets to as you get some of the new powers. But yeah, I feel bad now. I feel like I should have. I didn't. I didn't pick enough games that maybe you would recognize. I went with the most like ones that I thought, oh, these are probably going to be pretty well known.
Well, no, I mean, I went through the list. There's something like 600 games in that year or something like that. I don't know. It was insane. Like, we had to scroll like 3 times on the Wikipedia to look through. And yeah, like, it was all these mainly Super Nintendo games and Genesis. And I was I was a PC kid then. I was playing my TIE Fighter and not much else around that time, or SimCity 2000, Civilization still. I don't even think Civ 2 came out by this time. And unlike you, I've never gone back. There's just so many games released every year. I never look back too much. But we'll move on. Earthworm Jim. I have a side note to this. That's about all I know.
Oh, a classic platform shooter, whatever you want to call this game. I have no idea. I don't know what genre I would call Earthworm Jim.
I kind of put it with the like run and gun kind of genre.
There you go. Good enough for me.
If you say so.
Yeah, this is a game that does not take itself very seriously at all. Basically, you play as an earthworm that a spacesuit landed on, gave him intelligence, strength, all sorts of crazy stuff, and your goal is to save Princess What's-Her-Name. And that's literally her name, from Queen Ugly Space Butt or whatever. Like, this is very much a 90s crude humor game where you see stuff like Ren and Stimpy. Like, this is a kind of video game that they would be playing probably.
Yeah, Princess what's her name?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Queen Slug for a Butt, that's her name.
Yep.
You have to save her from Queen Slug for a Butt. And then you have what is it? One of my favorite characters who you beat by literally walking up to the fishbowl, and Earthworm Jim picks him up and throws him out. It's Bob the Evil Goldfish.
Oh yeah.
It's so stupid. But damn, is this game hard.
Very, very, very difficult.
I see people are. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't think I ever gotten past the water level at all.
Oh, with the bubble thing you gotta control.
Yeah, and then you have to do that weird, like, deal with the difficult controls with that submarine thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. When I'm playing this on the Genesis app thing on the Nintendo Switch, yeah, I used save states a few times, and I used the rewind feature because I'm just like, holy shit! I can't believe they expected kids to beat this. It's like as bad as like Battletoads on the NES was.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. I ended up I tried to replaying the game like 10 years ago or something like that. I'm like, yeah, I'll beat it this time. I'm older. I'm better at games. I'll get to it. Then I get to that level again. I still couldn't beat it, so I just gave up.
It's
it's
a tough game, man. So don't feel bad.
It really is.
Don't feel bad. Oh, but yeah, this game also. Just real quick before Platty tells us his story, there is a cartoon series actually based on this game and the other games that followed it. And funny enough, the voice actor who played Earthworm Jim himself was Dan Castellaneta, aka Homer Simpson.
Yeah,
I actually did not know that. Huh.
Oh yeah, if you go and watch like clips on YouTube and listen to them, if you ever watch the Aladdin animated series from Disney, at that point you can hear the similarities between like his voice and how the genie talks, because Castellaneta also voiced Genie in the animated series of Aladdin.
Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah. Huh.
It's a pretty funny show, and they definitely throw in a lot of humor that's very adult humor, which is fitting for this kind of game. / what Earthworm Jim's doing. It does not take itself seriously at all.
It's a shame that the reboot show didn't end up coming into fruition either.
Yeah, who knows? They might have had to tone it down though, because you have nowadays versus back then, where it, as I like to call it, it was like the Wild West of cartoons, because things weren't as like quite as controlled as they are now, which is both good and bad in some cases. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about games, damn it. But Platty, what is your Earthworm Jim story?
So I mentioned, years ago to, I don't know, I think when I was quitting the HOA back a long time ago, that I was like, I got too many stuff to do. Run a couple podcasts, and my job was changing at work and whatever. And our HOA president, I mean, he's not much older than me. Maybe young 50s. Can't be. He might just look up for his age, but he's like, oh yeah. He goes, I worked on a video game once. I was like, what? And he's like, you ever play Earthworm Jim? And I was like, I've heard of it. Like, he's like, yeah. He goes, I'm in the credits of that game. Like, something like playtester or quality assurance or something like that. He's like,
That's awesome.
It was just like a real minor thing that it flashes by at the end and it's gone. I was like, oh, okay.
That's kind of cool, actually.
That's pretty cool.
So
crazy, man.
I was like, oh man, I drove over to EA Sports in the earlier 2000s a couple dozen times and did play testing. I never gotten like Madden for giving my opinions on that or anything.
You should go to his house and see if he has a framed copy of a snapshot of him in the credits on his wall.
But I've known the guy like 8 years and never been over his house. Like
there you go. Now you got a reason to go
at the meetings.
You got a reason to go now, man. You got to go find out for us. But no, that is pretty cool, though. What are the chances of that, too? That's funny.
I know, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I said, no, usually it's role-playing games. And he's like, what are those again? I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, Final Fantasy. He's like, oh, yeah, I think I've heard of those. I'm like, oh, okay, there you go. We're done.
Man,
I'm not going to explain. I'm not going to mansplain a whole genre.
Let me tell you about them RPGs.
But I think it's time for you though, Yangus, to mansplain us the beginning of the amazing series that we now all beloved, Freddy Fish.
Yes. Yeah, this was one of the first games out from Humongous Entertainment, and the first game on the Freddy Fish series. Freddy Fish in the Case of the Missing Kelp Seeds. For those who don't know, Humongous Entertainment mostly did computer games back in the day. They've kind of made a resurgence now, which is pretty cool. But they did a lot of point-and-click adventure games for younger audiences, where they did a lot of hand-drawn animation, a lot of, like, I don't want to say it. I mean, a lot of computer games did have voice acting, but like pretty much every character you talk to did have a voice. And admittedly, the game's not super long, but it was one of those games too where every time you replayed it, it would be a little different each time. They had to solve certain puzzles and stuff. So this very first game in the Freddy Fish series, you play as Freddy Fish and her little pal Luther, who are he. I appreciate Luther's humor as an adult much more than I ever did as a kid. As a kid, I just thought he was annoying, but as an adult, you're like, man, this guy is actually very relatable because he does not care. He does not give a crap about anything going on in this crazy undersea world they live in. But apparently all the kelp has disappeared, and all the kelp seeds they originally used to plant the seeds somehow all got stolen. Whoever that caretaker lady is for it should not be in charge of it anymore. She's old and senile, and all she has left is a single sandwich with peanut butter and jellyfish sandwich. So don't leave old ladies in charge of the food. Write that down, kids. But your whole goal is to go around, find clues on where the kelp seeds were taken. As you go through, you actually get some cutscenes with the bad guys and what they were doing and like where they hid the kelp and like they're trying to re-find it and everything. And I don't really have too much more else to say other than that it's one of the first games from them. Eventually, Freddy Fish went on to be in her own series of games. This is kind of in the early days of Humongous Entertainment. This is kind of like when like the first first Putt-Putt game came out. Excuse me. And then we had like Fatty Bear. So this is kind of when they were like testing the waters. I guess obviously Freddy Fish was enough of a success that she then got like 4 or 5 other games, including some like little side activity kind of games where it's like, match these up, here's a maze thing, whatever, blah, blah. But this is one that I played quite a few times as a kid. I prefer some of the later ones a bit more, but it's cool going back and seeing, how this series evolved and changed as each new entry, especially as like the animation and stuff goes, because in these first few ones, it's a lot more pixelated. It just gets more smoother, more well drawn and animated, and just how they presented not only the characters, but the underwater world itself by keeping everything visually different from each other. Because there's some really cool background paintings in these games, especially like, I think it's the second or the third one, if I remember right. There's like this huge sunken ship that's underwater, and you get this really cool like establishing shot of it, and eventually as you get closer it get cut up to where like the actual characters are down there. But I'm getting off topic going into other games, but yeah, Freddy Fish 1 is a cool start to the series.
Yeah, I want to say I played the second and the third game. I'm looking at the Wikipedia now. It was either it might have been summer of '99. I was back from college, didn't have much to do. And my mom at the time was teaching preschool and doing like preschool camp over the summer. She's like, hey, they always need people. You want to come in and do preschool camp? And I came in. I used to come in like, I think late in the day, like 10. It was so that I wasn't full time. They were like, just trying to give people part-time hours. And I'd be there from like 10 or 11 and then be there to like 3 every day. And honestly, the kids, it was nap time every day from like noon to 3 or maybe 1 to 3 or something like that. And during nap time, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fall asleep. It was just like me sitting in a room with a bunch of sleeping 3 and 4-year-olds. And I'm like, there's gentle music playing. The AC's blowing. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to fall asleep. But we had Freddy Fish on the computer. So missing kelp seeds. I don't know. I was trying to look at some shots of that. I don't know. They kind of all blend together because I didn't, I'd play them a little bit and I had to play them with the sound all the way down because the kids were sleeping. So
yeah,
the beginning of my not playing things with the volume up. But I could hear Freddy Fish's I can hear Freddy Fish's voice in my head. Like I hear that enough. But yeah, those were fun little point and click adventure games.
Yeah, a lot of the humongous entertainment games from their point and click genre of them, they're all pretty good, and they all still hold up pretty well. I think they definitely went for more of like, what do I want to say, like a timeless feel instead of trying to be like, throwing in like a whole bunch of like modern pop culture stuff. It's kind of like where if you oh God, what's the comparison I'm thinking of? It's something that I think a kid could play now and they'd still be like, oh, okay. They can understand it without like, there's no like obvious like major technology differences that are shown off or things like that make it obvious like, oh, this is from such and such, other than the probably the audio quality. But you know what I'm trying to say, where it's like it has that timeless sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
unlike early PlayStation 1 games where they did too many, not a lot of polygons and doesn't feel timeless.
Oh, you and your hate for the PS1.
Sorry, Brurian.
Brurian's seething now. He's like, turn the episode off. All right. Well,
I think we're moving down our list. We
better check into our next one.
Oh gosh, I couldn't even believe this was real. I saw this on the list and I'm like, okay, whatever. Hotel Mario, what the hell? Tell me about this.
Oh yeah, it's real, baby. So, Twinkie, do you know anything about this one? Any of the history or anything?
My exposure to it was from the early days of YouTube.
Yep.
That's really all I had to say about it.
Me too. So,
y'all didn't have those Philips CDIs?
Oh, how much was the Philips CDI back then? It was like $700.
Yeah, no my parents were gonna get me one, but then they threw it out the window, and they were like, "Yeah, no." No, I had no idea what a Philips CDI even was until like the early 2000s. Because like Twinkie, I learned about them via YouTube. I think a lot of people like our age know about it via like all the YouTube poops that people would use clips of in like their videos they made.
Yep, same with the Zelda games, Zelda CDIs. Yeah.
Yep. For anybody listening who doesn't know what a YouTube poop is, basically it's something that people use where they use video editing software to make something silly with clips of different shows or sound effects, whatever. Basically like a little parody video of sorts. And a lot of people back in the early days of YouTube poop absolutely loved using these CDI games like the Zelda ones, Hotel Mario. You know what? I'm not even going to describe the gameplay because it's really not that important. If you want to learn about what this game's about, just go to YouTube and look up the cutscenes for this game. You'll get all you need to know from that. But like Mario says, if you need instructions on how to get through the hotels, check out the enclosed instruction book. But yeah, Platty, it's real. So,
oh my,
this is your nightmare.
I just looked like it. It looked like somebody drew Mario and Luigi in MS Paint and animated it.
That's basically what they did.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you're not far off.
Nail right on the head.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so been there, seen that now. Ooh.
So yeah, for anybody listening, just go to MS Paint, draw your best Mario and Luigi, and you know what? They'll fit right in with with these cutscenes. There's a crazy history with all this too. If you look into it, it's like, oh my God, this is back when Nintendo actually was still trying to give other people a shot with their licenses before they eventually were like, no, don't touch them, don't touch our babies.
All right, kind of round up our last few here. What do you guys have to say about Killer Instinct?
Ultra Combo. There you go, Twinkie.
Yeah, This was actually Killer Instinct was actually probably my first proper fighting game I ever played.
Oh, really?
So I have some history with this one, though I can't really say a whole lot about it because I don't remember a whole lot about the game because I only played the Super Nintendo one. I never played the what was it, the 2011 reboot, remake, or whatever, the sequel that came out. I never played that either, but
yeah. you played the original one though.
I played the original on Super Nintendo. Yeah.
Nice.
I call him my brother, but he pretty much is my brother. He had a copy of it, and every weekend we would always play a couple matches, and he would always play Cinder, I think his name is. He's like that all flame guy, and he would always constantly spam where he turns into a fireball and hit me, and he would do that for hours on end, and I would do everything in my power to try to win, and we would play it for hours, and I mean hours, and he would just spam that same move. I'm surprised he even has thumbs after doing that so much, but it's not a bad game. I don't think I would really recommend it in this day and age, honestly. The only other memory I have of it is back in the early days of Funkoland when you go to the used game section, and they always had the stack of Super Nintendo games, and there would always be 10 or 11 copies of this game because it came in the black cart. But yeah, I mean, it's fine for what it is.
Oh yeah. This I have not played the original Mortal Kombat, the original Killer Instinct, but I have played Killer Instinct Gold, which is on the Rare Replay collection, which I was actually kind of disappointed in because I don't think the control scheme is very good for these fighters. Sure. If I'm being completely honest, I don't know how the new one is, but I didn't care for that, how it played. But I do really appreciate they used a lot of the same technology they used for the Donkey Kong Country game, since this is made by Rare. Should preface that. They used a lot of the same technology they used for making the Donkey Kong Country games. They used the same thing for making the sprites in the Killer Instinct games, where they would, take these 3D models of theirs, turn them into 2D images to make sprites and everything. And they're very well animated too. Even in this day and age, I think that they are very cleanly animated, and they still look pretty good. But I also have kind of a soft spot for that 90s early 3D look. So take my opinion with a grain of salt on that one.
Do you know if the Rare Replay version was based on the N64 version? Because that would probably explain the poor controls too.
I wonder if it is. I can't say that with absolute certainty, but something tells me that it probably is.
Yeah, because the N64 is great with fighters. We all know that.
It's
except for Smash Brothers, of course. But
that one at least kept it slow and simple. So.
Right.
But I know what you mean. It was oh God, what was I gonna say? Killer Instinct. Shit, I'm totally lost my train of thought. I'm just gonna forget whatever it was I was gonna try and say, and instead I'm just gonna say Killer Instinct, for all of its, by today's standards, it's probably not the most amazing fighting game to play. But it's got a kick-ass soundtrack and some really cool design characters, and it's cool that they, brought it back for the Xbox, and they not only brought back, so many characters, they were able to make some new ones. You also had some crossover characters with other Rare properties, you had one of the Battletoads, which, it's kind of silly, but honestly, I think that totally fits in. And as we talked about in our last episode, Saberwolf, which Pendy was kind enough to mention, he technically does appear in this one from that Saberwolf game that I mentioned as one of the playable characters. So there we go. And plus, you gotta love the voice acting when the guy goes Ultra Combo Breaker. It was great.
All right, a lot of fighting games this year. Because here we go. Next one, King of Fighters '94.
Woo! KOF.
What was so exciting about '94? KOF.
Well, this one was actually so this was back at the time when the main fighting series from SNK were Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting. So King of Fighters '94 was actually just supposed to be a one-shot thing that they did as a spin-off, where they brought characters from both of those games together, as well as a few original characters that they came up with. Well, eventually it ended up being so popular that they made a new entry for every new year, kind of like how Madden games did at the time.
Yep.
And it ended up becoming one of SNK's most popular franchises, which unfortunately, sorry to all the Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting fans that you didn't get new entries for such a long time. But SNK really, kept setting the bar higher and higher with the different entries in the KOF series. So for the first game here, instead of being able to customize your team, you picked from 6 or 7 different teams of playable characters. You work your way through the arcade. Eventually, you get to the big bad villain of this particular game, Rugal Bernstein, who is a mean son of a bitch to fight, especially if he uses his genocide cutter, which is almost guaranteed to take off over half your health. He was purposely designed to be unfair, and that's why we all love our dear Lord and Savior Rugal Bernstein. But yeah, this is this is kind of like the Dragon Quest thing where first game's a little rough around the edges. The ones later on started refining more and more. But a lot of people really liked the tag team, 3 different characters, working together in a fight versus what Street Fighter and some of the other ones were doing at the time, where just you had a single character. So as the games went on they started making it more you could pick your own custom teams of characters rather than just having to use the one set team. So that was pretty cool. But this is a game that started setting sort of the groundwork too for some of the versus games that Capcom ended up making too. So again, we kind of go back to something we talked about earlier, where the competition was trying something new, and then the other ones were like, oh, well, we should try that, but try and improve on that. And yeah, nowadays we're up to King of Fighters 15, which actually just got some new DLC announced a few weeks ago when EVO happened. So yeah, series is still going strong. Any of you guys got thoughts on KOF? I'm sorry, what was that?
I said this is where it all began.
Yes. It started as just a one-off spin-off, ended up becoming one of SNK's big properties to kind of bring all of their different series together.
Yeah, I don't have much experience with King of Fighters or a lot of SNK games for the most part, actually, for their fighting games. But I'm not sure if you knew this, but King of Fighters 94 is kind of, in a way, responsible for the existence of Super Smash Brothers.
Oh,
as a fun fact.
The Dragon King thing, is that what you're talking about?
Well, Sakurai, because Sakurai played this game a lot in the arcades when it first came out, and there was because I'm not sure if you knew how Japanese arcade cabinets were, but they weren't side by side. They were there would be another cabinet that would its own cabinet that would have multiplayer connectivity. So each person would have their own cabinet when they played a fighting game. And he was playing King of Fighters 94, and there was a guy and his girlfriend that walked into the arcade, and he matched up with them in a match, and he ended up beating the guy so bad that he almost got depressed about it, because he was sitting there trying to impress his girlfriend and stuff like that, and he felt so bad about it. So that actually ended up becoming an inspiration on making a more casual, friendly fighting game, which ended up becoming Super Smash Brothers. In fact,
okay.
I think he actually he has his own YouTube channel. I think he actually published a video talking about that story not too long ago. In fact, I think he published it this week. But yeah,
interesting. I did not know about that 94 story. I know when Terry was getting added to Smash, that he mentioned that he played a lot of 95, and that was sort of what inspired him with that too. But no, I did not know about the KOF 94 thing. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it's a very Sakurai sounding thing, though.
Very much so.
It sounds very legit. So I do not doubt you for 1 second.
Alrighty, moving on down our list, we've got Shin Megami Tensei 2 and the If game, right? Is that SMT If, right?
Yeah. It's weird. I put both of these on here, and maybe it's well, why are you putting 2 games together? They actually both came out in 94. Which is crazy. I did not know that until I was doing the research for this episode. So I don't know if any of us are really going to have a whole lot to say. I have not admittedly played either one of these 2. I've seen stuff and read stuff, but I've not actually played them. But I will say it's pretty cool. SMT2 is actually one of the few games in this entire series from Atlas which is a direct sequel to the previous game. Because after the events of the first one, this is actually the game that follows up what took place after certain events transpired from the first game. Because what world that your character Alf in the second one lives in is the aftermath of what eventually became of the world of the first game. And as a bit of a morbid reference to that as well, there's a certain cave you can go into where you find a skeleton that bears a very striking resemblance to the character of the first game because a lot of the armor and everything that he has. But This is kind of like the Doom 2 thing, where it took the gameplay of SMT1, really improved and refined it a lot more. And I believe they also used the SMT2 engine for SMT If when that eventually came out. SMT If was kind of the precursor for the Persona games a little bit.
That's where I remember that. I knew there was some point in history that this...
It's weird because like the Persona games really don't have much in common with it, other than like it's a bunch of kids like get stuck in like this crazy situation. So it's kind of funny. But admittedly, I haven't played these ones myself. This is when we need Blue's brother on here, because I think he's actually played both of these. we need him for his expertise on that. But these are two games that a lot of SMT fans, consider to be pretty good. Especially people like the second one for how it does it kind of takes the Mad Max approach almost with its story, where you have like this really desolate world on the outside, but you don't really know about that until you get exposed to it as like the story progresses and stuff. And of course, it's SMT, so demons run around all over the place. You got to fuse them together, make better ones for yourself. And yeah.
So you're telling me it's an SMT game?
Yes. Same with If, but If actually is kind of cool because it actually does have a New Game Plus sort of feature where you actually can unlock a brand new story route entirely. And it's crazy to think that Atlas actually was able to do that without having to release an entirely brand new version of a game just to do it.
What?
I know, right?
Oh, they never do that.
No, never. But no, the SMT If, the Akira route, which you unlock for beating the game at least once, that path gets kind of crazy, actually. It's pretty cool how it handles stuff, because it's totally different from the rest of the game. But, don't really have too much else to say other than that SMT good. And Atlas, for the love of God, please re-release these games somehow in English for people to play them officially. For the love of God, please. I want to use these powers of ours for good and get these games out for more people to play. Damn it.
All right. I have a feeling that Mattcraft is not coming back. We haven't heard from him in a bit since he had to step away. So we might as well scroll back up. This is a game that I had originally planned on playing this year. I have been totally sidetracked. This is going to be my year of trying to play some series that I'd not played in a while. And Breath of Fire 2 was on my list. I know I'd had a long chat with Mattcraft about this in the past, and I guess I see you put stuff down about the fan translations, because apparently the translation for this original game was pretty much crap.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Yep, and Mattcraft was like, "Oh, for the love of God, don't play it on the Nintendo Switch." He's like, "Just emulate it. Use this specific fan translation." He's like, "This is the really good one." So I had that downloaded, ready to go, and have been distracted by Dragon Quest lately.
Yes,
I think I played maybe the first hour or two, and I just remember like a couple kids going into a cave at the beginning.
This is one of those games where like. And I had written down that I played this back on the Wii Virtual Console, and I kind of got a ways into it. I know I got to the winged girl Nina, who has like the black wings, and the monkey guy. I forget what his name is, but God, the difficulty was all over the place in this game. This is one of those games where people are like, "Oh, RPGs are so grind heavy." This is one of those games one of those RPGs that I would say is grind heavy, because oh boy. It is not fun. Like, I remember as a kid being like, am I doing something wrong? At that point, I'd been playing some of the Final Fantasy games and stuff, and I didn't grind like crazy in those ones, but I never felt like I was like crazy under or overpowered. But in this game, I just was like so many times like, man, like I feel like I am super weak. Am I doing something wrong with playing it? But I would recommend playing it with one of the fan translations. It makes things so much clearer.
Trying to think of the Magical Girl one I played emulated like last year or something like that, and it was a new fan translation, but it also did a double gold and double experience built into it, and because it was grindy as hell as an early SNES title, and that made that so easy.
That I would recommend that too for Breath of Fire 2, and if you ever play that one as well, because
I played the first one. I did that. Gosh, I think it came out for the. Was it on Game Boy?
Yes, Game Boy Advance.
There was. Yep, I played that one. I remember the exact year I played that one, but late 2008.
It's so weird with the first one because it's still like made by Capcom, but it was published by Square back in the day, like on the Super Nintendo. It's so weird. and then Capcom did the second one, and that's why the translation's so shit. They were focusing on Street Fighter and fighting games, man. They weren't used to these big text-heavy games.
All right. Well, speaking of fighter games, we're down to our last game on the list here. I see something got deleted. So we will end with Tekken. This is the original Tekken?
Yep. Apparently it came out in 94. That shocked me.
Was that like a release title with the PlayStation?
It must have been. I was honestly shocked by that one because I'm like, really? That was 94?
And PlayStation was like a December 8th release for that year in 94. So I wonder if it was a release title.
Let me look it up here real fast, the date on it.
It
came out September 21st.
It was in arcades in 94.
Yeah.
It was an arcade game in 94, made it to the PlayStation in 95.
Okay, so I guess we're technically talking about the arcade release, but yeah. Very first Tekken game. This was back then too when they were what the hell is it I'm thinking of? It's Virtual Fighter was a big influence on 3D fighting games at the time. So eventually Namco was like, well, we're going to try our hand at this too, and that's how Tekken came to be. And now we're on the 8th entry of the series, which Twinkie apparently hates with a passion.
I wouldn't say hate with a passion, but it's pretty close.
I had to get you back in here somehow. Yeah, what do you guys think about Tekken?
I promise I'm not saying anything because I'm not trying to avoid talking or anything, but I honestly haven't played the original Tekken, believe it or not. I started with Tekken 2. So.
What do you think about Tekken in general? We'll make this more broad.
Really great series. I love it, but it's like if you're new to fighting games, don't play them until you're more experienced. That's pretty much it. Because despite the fact that it's a 4-button fighter, it is a lot more complicated than you think it would be. Because with Tekken, each of the 4 buttons represents one of your limbs, and so it adds that element of you controlling individual limbs. Essentially, makes it a lot more complicated than for something like Street Fighter that's a 6-button fighter. So, but Tekken's a pretty good series. Maybe avoid 8. I don't really have any good things to say about 8, but it's a pretty good series overall, though. Definitely.
What about you, Platty? You had any experience with Tekken at all?
I have never taken the time to play one.
Gosh, so sheltered.
Me and my like I said, this was the era that I never played a lot of games, and I never got into the whole fighting games thing. So other than the Street Fighter back in the day, and even that was just for a year or two with a friend down the road.
So sheltered, my God. No. Sorry. I've never played. Well, I don't think I've ever played the original Tekken. It's weird. I have a very vague memory that I was in an arcade because I specifically remember. Oh goodness, what's the wood character's name?
I can't remember. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
God damn it! What's that character's name? It's the wood block one. It's the one that can copy every other character's moveset.
Mokujin,
thank you. Yes, Mokujin.
Yeah.
Because I remember going into this arcade once at a hotel, and they had a Tekken machine. Because I remember specifically, it was showing one of those on-screen demos. There was this giant wood block man fighting a panda. And I remember as a kid, for the longest time thinking, okay, that's a really weird memory. Well, turns out that was actually Tekken. So if anyone ever says, "Oh, Tekken's become really weird nowadays," no, it's always been weird. Don't listen to them.
It's always been weird. Yeah,
it's always been weird. Except poor Mokujin never appears anymore. Rip Mokujin, gone but not forgotten. Our wooden friend. But I've not played the first one, but I have played a little bit of the Tekken series. I played a lot of Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on the Wii U, and I enjoy watching Evo matches and stuff, like high tournament play. One of my favorite sets is from, I forget which Evo year it's from, but it's a player named Little Majin who played as King, and damn does he do a good job. He unfortunately does not win Evo that year, but as far as I'm concerned, he won all of our hearts because he was a great player.
He absolutely is a great player.
Guy had charisma for days. That was great. So fun watching him. But yeah, Tekken it's a series I like. I like a lot of the characters from it. I enjoyed messing around with Street Fighter Cross Tekken when that came out, and I was so happy when they announced Kazuya as one of the playable characters coming to Smash Brothers. Like, admittedly, a lot of the characters that were in past number 2 were just kind of hit and miss for me. But when they announced Kazuya, oh man, I was just had the biggest grin on my face. I love Kazuya. I was glad it wasn't Heihachi or Jin, because it's always Heihachi or Jin.
Yeah.
So I was so glad that the OG, who throws his father into a volcano after he was thrown off a cliff, got to be playable. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about Tekken. It's a crazy series, and no family loves each other, and that's it. That one. I gotta stop talking because my throat's starting to hurt.
I was going to say, well, what a perfect time that we are out of 1994 games. There's quite a bit here, and Yangus played them all. Yangus played every game that came out.
I feel so bad. I really do. I thought I picked games that all of us would have at least maybe played at least more.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry. I'm not going to be in charge of picking.
I played Earthbound for 14 hours. I played Final Fantasy a couple times. It's just been 25 years. I don't have a lot of good memories of those to pull up as fresh. Should have been a pixel remaster year for me to do the get 6 in here. But 2004, I'm confident I'm going to have a bit more stuff to say about 2004.
Someone else gets to make that list because if we do that again, because I feel bad. I really thought I tried going through all these different genres, and I'm like, well, surely this will be a good list. I guess before we end,
there's your mistake. Maybe, we should have invited Shirley.
I guess. But I guess before we do end things off here, are there any other quick ones you guys want to mention that weren't on the list, or ones that I totally spaced and forgot to include?
I went through, and like I said, I added TIE Fighter. I thought I'd played the first XCOM game. XCOM started this year, but turns out I had started with the second game, which was visually almost identical, that came out a year later, Terrors from the Deep. I was more underwater XCOM.
You were living under the sea.
Under the sea.
It's much better down where it's wetter. Take it from me.
I will. The
second time now we've done a Disney song reference.
All right. Well, if it's not Prince Ali and it's not Ariel, then I think we're good. We're done. That's it for our roundup of 1994 video games. Next time, in a week or two, we'll be fast forwarding a decade. We'll see what was going on once the new millennium was in full swing.
Yeah, I'm really concerned if we're going to survive Y2K when we get to 2000. I'm afraid, man. I don't know what's going to happen.
I got a feeling we'll be okay.
I don't know. I guess we'll go ahead and thank Mattcraft for a little bit of time he was able to join us, and thank you, Twinkie, for reminiscing with us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
Yes, definitely. And as I like to always remind people, we don't crowdsource or dynamically insert ads that you don't all give two shits about. We're all grown-ass adults here that like to talk about video games and other topics we enjoy, and we don't need a dime of your money to do so. But if you'd like to contribute to Dragon Quest fandom, feel free to head on over to the Dragon's Den, donate some money to Woodus, who's paid to keep those lights on for decades. Come on, you've used guides on there forever, or picked up art or looked back at old scans and stuff. I've just been getting old 10-year-old Dragon Quest X backgrounds for my computer desktop from there. But, if you don't want to just flat out donate to Woodus, you can use one of his affiliate links. You can still buy Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest Monsters 3, pre-order Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D. I don't think they got the orders up for 1 and 2 yet, but when that happens, you can do that too. Or just order literally anything else by clicking on his Amazon link, and he'll get, 2 or 3 cents of that money.
Wait, you say anything?
I said anything. You got a new refrigerator you need? You're buying on Amazon? There you go.
Ooh. I have been wanting to get a second air fryer.
Nope. All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Sidequest complete. We'll see you all in 2004, maybe. All right. Bye-bye.
This is Gertrude for Slime Time, reminding you all that you must complete your adventure.